Welcome back. Till now, we have discussed what do we mean by open source and why open source is in your best interest. We had a look at GitHub and we had a discussion about version control system. Now we are going to finally come at the most awaited question, what is Git? So in this video, I am going to discuss with you about what is Git and some of its internal working. And in the next video, we are going to have a look at the setup on how can we get started with Git and a few basic commands. So it's, all in all, it's going to act like a good crash course for you. Even if you have knowledge in Git, this video is for you. So let's get started. So what is Git? Git is one of the, or not one of the, we can without a doubt say the most widely used version control system and is considered to be the best friend of any developer today. So in the previous video, we already discussed about what is a version control. So if you don't know what is a version control, just quickly go over to my previous video on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/theleanprogrammer, and go to the playlist section and click on the beginner's guide to Git, GitHub and open source. So what is Git? Git is the most widely used version control system. Okay, let's have a quick look at how does Git work. Let's have a quick look at the inner working of Git version control system. So basically Git thinks of its data as a series of snapshots of a file system. So for example, let's say a version 1 has file A, file B and file C. So as soon as you commit or save the data, it's going to create a quick snapshot of how the code looked at this particular period of time. Now every time you commit basically means save. Exact keywords, don't worry about them, we are going to have a look at it. But every time we commit or save the state of our project, Git basically takes a sort of snapshot of what all of your files look at that moment and stores a reference to that snapshot. As I told you in the previous example as well. So if a version 1 had file A, B and C, and as soon as you commit it, it will take a quick snapshot of how it looks at in version 1. And now to be efficient, if files have not changed, Git does not store the file again. It just links to the previous identical file that it has already stored. So this was very quick internal working. If you want, you can also take it as a homework to create your own sort of version control system. And let me tell you an interesting question. This was one of the interview questions. If you have to create a version control system, how would you do that? Just design a new version control system. So there can be multiple ideas and there exists multiple version control systems, and Git is considered to be the most developer friendly right now, and it's the most popular these days. So yes, how it works very quickly. Let's say there was a version 1 and then there was a version 2. In version 2, file A was converted into A1. So there was some changes, C into C1, but B remained as it is. So again, in the next snapshot, it just linked to the previous snapshot for B, but it did save A1 and C1. And that is how we do the check-ins over time, or that is how we do the new versions of our code. So here are some cool terms that look difficult, but they are not difficult. As soon as you start working on open source projects, or as soon as you start working in any company as a software developer, you will get very familiar with all of these terms. So what is a snapshot? I already told you, it records all the files at a given point of time so that you can look up at them any time later. What is a commit? The act of creating a snapshot, as simple as that. Or if we have to say in layman terms, the act of saving your code. So that is called a commit. So one is advised to commit his code whenever there are significant changes made. So yes, commit soon, commit early, so that you can revert back to the previous commits whenever you want, even if you made any unwanted change. So a commit is basically the point of time where your code is saved by the version control system. Now what is a repository? A repository is nothing but the location or the digital storage where all your files are stored. So we call that location a Git repository. For example, here's the repository for these slides. You can access the slides by going to madhavbahel.tech/Hacktoberfest2021, and here are this is the repository where these files are stored. Don't forget to give it a star, and this is called github.com/madhavbahel/Hacktoberfest2021. And don't forget to follow me if you haven't already. I would really appreciate that. Perfect. And now the next one is head. So head is a reference to the most recent commit. So for example, let's say we have multiple commits. Let's say I have 7 commits here. So head would be the reference of the most recent commit. Now branches, what are branches? Now this is without a doubt the most important concept in Git. So basically Git follows a tree-like structure with a sort of reverse manner, you can say. So in a tree, the branches go out, but in Git, the branches grow out of the trunk, but at some point of time, they merge into it once again. So what are branches? So basically, the concept of branches was needed because multiple people need to work on one code base at a single time. For example, if you're working on a team, there will be 10-20 people in your team, right? You won't be alone. So how will you manage the changes? We manage the changes with the concept of branches. So whenever we have to make any change, so first of all, we have to, the thing that we should remember that master or main, so these are a few keywords. Earlier it used to be master, but now recently there was a change suggesting that we should not name our branches as master, but by default I think it's still master. So yes, the master branch is something that you can compare with the trunk of the tree. So master branch always has the most recent and the most deployable code. What do we mean by deployable or shippable? A code that can be directly deployed to the prod users or the end users. So basically, master is your branch. A branch is again nothing but, you can say, a sort of copy of that same code that is hosted on the repository. So there's a Git repository, and a repository can have multiple branches. And each branch will have the copy of the same, you can say, code, but there can be difference. So now let's say, I'll give you a very quick example. Let's say I had to release a new feature. Let's say I had to, for example, in my portfolio website, the example that I gave you before as itself, let's say I had to make a quick feature that would say link to my YouTube channel on my portfolio website. Now I would never do the changes directly in the master branch because we know that master is the most deployable branch, and if anything breaks in master, that might affect the prod users as well. Although release branches is a different concept, there are release branches as well, but still a lot of people directly deploy master. So if I had to deploy, if just think about it, if there was only a single piece of code and that had to be deployed as well, and that had to be worked upon by multiple people in the team as well, wouldn't it create a mess? Even though Git is there, it wouldn't be much help if it can't even provide us with copies of code that we can work upon without affecting someone else's work. So that is the concept of branches. So whenever we need to make any feature, we can just fork out. This is called forking out. We are basically creating a branch. We can create a temporary branch, and then we can make our commit. These are commits, and we can make our commits, and then when we are done, we can merge these commits with the most deployable branch, that is the master or the main branch. So what will happen is I can check out to a new branch to make this feature, and then I can, whenever that feature is done, I can come back to my original branch and merge those branches. So basically the definition of a branch is that all commits live on some branch, and there can be many branches in the single repository, and a branch is nothing but the state of code at that point of time in that particular location. So yeah, that's pretty much it about the concept of branches. There are multiple branches in a real project that you work. There could be developed branches developed branches generally have the ongoing feature work going on. Then out of the developed branches, you can fork out the feature branches, and multiple developers can work on their own feature branches. There could be hotfix branch. Hotfix means a fix that we need to deploy as soon as possible. There could be release branch, and so on. It's very, very easy to understand, because the thing is that we need a separate location to make our changes only, and that is the concept of branches. If you have understood that, you have understood the concept of Git. Rest everything is just the Git commands. So that was it about Git. If you have any doubts, if you have any questions, if you want any guidance, feel free to mention it in the comment section. I will definitely have a look at it. See you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe my YouTube channel, youtube.com/theleanprogrammer.